So my question is about the international financial flows, and I thought it was really interesting when you talked about the fact that the methodologies of the ease of doing business, World Bank is being changed, and you also talked about the credit risk also being assessed. Do you think that's it? Do you think that would unlock financial flows to these clean energy projects in Africa? Is that the only problem? I'm really curious about that.
No. The short and the long answer is no. These are by no means going to fix the problem. And even if Macron and Mia Motley walk out of Paris on Friday with an agreement, that doesn't solve very much, because if you think about it, development finance is on the order of billions, right? There's hundreds of billions of dollars of bilateral funds that are flowing across the continent. But the investment needs that we're talking about for a clean energy transition are in the trillions. So by nature, we need to think about commercial finance. Development finance alone, philanthropy and development finance alone will not, that is not a debatable point. They just will not solve challenges by themselves. So then the question becomes, well, now, what are the mechanisms that we have at our disposal to influence private financial flows and drive those more to global south communities in regions like Latin America and the Caribbean and Africa and Southeast Asia? Right now the conversation is a lot about sort of the question that was raised: how do we de-risk the challenge, or how do we de-risk the investment? Take away some of the risk that international investors take on or say that they take on when they're investing in these communities. That's one of the big challenges. Another is thinking about how to aggregate the investment opportunities. So if you think about it, here in the EU, we've got the European Green Deal, and the US, you've got the IRA. And there are these climate deals that sit on the table, complete with incentives and potential subsidies to international investors. And then when you look at the space for Africa, there's nothing on the table that aligns with those or that is competing with those, right? We've got, as I mentioned, blended finance mechanisms here and there, and the AFDB is doing this thing, and the EIB is doing this thing here, and so it's sort of all over the map. And an aggregation of what the investment opportunity is for, if not the continent, blocks across the continent, like COMESA and the South African community and the West African community, would be really instrumental, I think, in at least raising the awareness, because one of the very practical challenges is just the lack of awareness. We're not on the radar, oftentimes, and we don't put ourselves on the radar by virtue of not having climate deals that sort of create the investment appetites and opportunities. So I would say look out for that at the Africa Climate Summit. I know that a number of groups are thinking about how do we aggregate the opportunity, how to create sort of these large-scale mechanisms that allow for scaling of finance and solving some of those issues. And to your first point about participating there, that would be fantastic if what comes out of the World Energy Justice Congress is, taking the conversation further to Africa, and maybe having a session about what role the international legal fraternity and practice plays in delivering on what somebody was mentioning, international environmental and human rights principles in Africa. I would come, and I would hope to participate very heavily in an event like that. So agreed.